All right, so for your Keynesian graph, what is the difference between a shift of the curve and a pivot of the curve? Okay. Now, something easy for you to remember, there is only 3 variables that would pivot the curve. Okay. Now, firstly, what is a pivot? A pivot is when the curve moves, but one point stays the same. Okay. So in this case, when we pivot the curve, this intercept, that one point over there, is going to stay the same, but all the other part of the curve will move. Okay. So let's start with an increase. We're going to pivot the curve upwards. Okay. Now, when we pivot the curve upwards, look where we intersect our 45-degree line. We intersected at a higher output and income. Okay. Which means that when that curve pivoted from the green to the blue, there was an increase in our aggregate output and income. Okay, so what could cause that? 3 different factors. Okay. Number 1, and first and foremost, the MPC, the marginal propensity to consume. All right. Now, if your MPC increases, you pivot the curve upwards. Because what is your marginal propensity to consume? It is the portion of your income that you consume versus save. Okay, so if you increase the percentage of your income that you consume rather than save, it means you're going to buy more goods and services with your income. I was earning 100 Rand, I was spending 50 Rand, I was saving 50 Rand. Now I'm going to spend 80 Rand and save only 20 Rand, which means that that 30 Rand is now being spent on our production for goods and services. So that is why we have an increase in our output and income. Okay. So when the MPC increases, we pivot the curve upwards. A different way is the tax rate. So what is tax? It is the proportion of your income that you spend on tax, and therefore you do not spend it on goods and services. Okay? So tax also affects your demand for goods and services. Now, if the tax rate decreases, we pivot the curve upwards. Why? If the tax rate decreases, it means you spend less money on tax and you spend more money on goods and services, which drives up the production of goods and services, which would move our economy from Y0 to Y1. Okay. And the third and final is your marginal propensity to import. Now, what is your marginal propensity to import? It is the percentage of your income that you spend on imports. Okay? Now, who produces imported goods? We do not produce imported goods. Foreigners produce imported goods. So if we decrease the marginal propensity to imports, it means that we are spending less income on imported goods and we are directing those funds from the foreign economies towards our own economy. So that means we are spending more of our money on our own production, and therefore we increase the production of goods and services. Okay. So bear in mind that the MPC, or rather the change in MPC and the change in tax rate and MPR, work in the opposite direction. Okay. And obviously, if these were the other way around, if MPC was a decrease, or tax was an increase, or MPR was an increase, you would pivot the curve downwards, and that would decrease your equilibrium output and income. All right.